Okay, this is an experiment that I've decided to record for my own benefit. I don't know. Other people might be interested in it. I'll flatter myself to think that's a possibility. I am trying to do a scenario which I think is difficult to really do, which is the battles of Lexington and Concord, April 19th, 1775. I used as a starting guide the scenario book from the British Grenadier series, Lexington and Concord, from scenario book 2. I think their map is obviously simplified, which you'd expect. What I've done with that is I use that as a starting point. If I had a bigger table, if I had more time, I might try to go to more detail. I did end up looking at some old prints, and it's the Doolittle prints, and looking at this fabulous book, Paul Revere's Ride by David Hackett Fisher, which is about a third of this is appendices, telling everything from the rate of the march of the British Army to just about anything you'd want to know. But I've got it set up right now. I guess I'll just point out a few key spots. I do have Lexington Green. Now understand that the scenario book probably treats Lexington as just a block of buildings. It's really not a building for building representation, but I'm trying to give kind of the rough idea. One interesting thing I pulled from the Hackett Fisher book is the fact there were spectators, which makes sense because, they didn't know the war was starting. This was just another powder incident, essentially. There've been powder instances earlier. Just so happened that this is where the war started. This is a representation for the Hartwell Tavern, Bloody Angle. This crossing, I believe, is important too. I can't remember at the top of my top of my head, I should say. Over here, Concord, pretty rough representation, but I know there was a pond. I think there's supposed to be a stream going up to the river, but I can't really replicate that. I have the famous graveyard where they get the Doolittle print of Pitcairn and Smith, looking over the events from there. It should be more elevated. I don't really have a way to do that right now at this stage in the game. This is a last minute addition to the setups. If I did this again, I'd probably raise the ground considerably around here. I have the Liberty Pole, which was apparently there too, which will be a British objective to remove. I'm realizing I haven't really bothered with Hancock and Adams as far as where they'd be staying or having them. They're not in the scenario book. I guess that would be an interesting addition to have them, but I don't. I have the Old North Bridge. I have, of course, the hill where the rebels came down from. This is the Barrett Farm. It's not really where it should be, but I'd run out of room. I don't know if it's going to be used. Under the scenario book, I don't think it really could be used very well. Southbridge, which is obviously not a very fancy fill-in. I may, throughout the course, move some of these stone walls. I don't know if I have enough technically in the right places, but I'm going by the rule set I'm using for this game because it's given me pretty good results in the past. Is Redcoats in the Wilderness and its predecessor, Wilderness Wars, because this book unfortunately is missing a few components every now and then. You have to go back to the old book when that happens, but overall it's a good set of rules. It's according to the scale of this and the distance the soldiers march in column. I may have the distance between the towns, about half what it should be, because it would seem that according to, if this game goes apace, it should take them about an hour in game time to get from Lexington to Concord, and historically took them 2 hours. So, there'd be an easy solution to that would be to reduce, have the rate of march or something. Bigger table's not an option at this point. This is the reason it's so difficult to game this, is because the situation, there's just so many variables. I mean, I'm going to, just to try this out, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try and make decisions that, I'm doing this solitaire, I'm going to try and make the decisions that the commanders historically made. So we have Pitcairn in the front, we've got Smith back here, we've got the British Lights in the front, British Grenadiers in the back, we have Parker's company on the green. The British will open fire. Under this game, there's simultaneous fire. I will probably penalize the militia because the British clearly fired the first volley. You don't know who fired the first shot at pretty close range. So I'm going to basically set it up for the same scenario, the same situation, the way it went. But for instance, historically, the British marched on to Concord. Right now we've got people busily hiding stores, and historically they secured both the north and the south bridge, and the detachment went to the Barrett farm. And on the way over, they encountered more militia coming down the road from Concord, and the militia just about faced and essentially escorted the British into Concord and then marched up to that hill. And they did not actually attack until they saw a fire from some things, which they doused the fire, ironically enough, because it was concerning an old woman of, I think it was some gun carriages or something that the British were burning, and they thought the town was being burned down. And that's what literally led to them coming down, spooking the light infantry, which opened fire into them. They fired back, and the war was on. So if I had, for instance, if I made the tactical decision over here to send soldiers to the Barrett farm, they're doomed. Probably, right? They get cut off. But historically that did not happen. They chased the British off the bridge and didn't leave anyone there to guard it, and these troops eventually came back, and they all reassembled in Concord, I believe, and it was when they were marching from Concord that the famous Battle Road incident began. So I'm going to try to replicate that, and if it kind of flows that way, then maybe I'll experiment with something else. But to really, really try to replicate this as a scenario, you'd need to have referees and hidden objectives and people who had no clue what was actually going on, what had happened historically, because once you know it could happen, right? It changes everything. So anyway, that's where I'm at. A little bit long-winded here.